Hi guys, this is Mike. In this video, I'm going to give you an introduction to Sketchbook Pro. Okay, now Sketchbook Pro is a drawing and sketching program made by Autodesk, and you can get that through a subscription model. And it's very similar to, say, other drawing programs that you might have used. One of its competitions, I guess, would be Photoshop, and it's sort of the default program for artists and graphic artists and designers. The difference is that Photoshop it encompasses a lot of different skills and tools, and you can use it in very different industries. Graphic design, web design. There's even some 3D that you can make within Photoshop. You can make GIF animations. You can do a lot of different things. But Sketchbook Pro is specifically just for drawing and sketching. And it's really one of my favorite programs because it is very specific to just drawing and sketching. I just feel that you can definitely bring in brushes into Photoshop and you can download them. You can purchase them through various sites that you can get. There's graphicriver.net that you can get some of these brushes. But Sketchbook Pro, it's all built into the program. You don't have to download anything. And that's why I kind of like it. It just gives me a better feel for, being able to draw and sketch. So it's a little bit different than maybe things that you've seen in the past. And there are some features that will be very similar to Photoshop. You have your tools that you're going to be using, the pencil or pen or brush or whatever you're going to be using is going to be in this palette here. You have these pucks, and if you used Autodesk products before, there's going to be some similarities into some of the interface that we have here in Sketchbook Pro. Now we have our different pucks that we have here for the color, for brightness and shading and contrast. And if you click on it, you can get a color that you want to use. Now we have our undo and our redo. We have our magnifying glass, and we have our selection tools that we can use here. And you can see that when you click on it, you get a drop down of more options, more varieties to use. And we have our crop. We have our move tool. So if you select something, then you can use your move tool to move that around. And this is a good way to show you now this little gizmo that we have that allows you to scale and resize and move objects around depending on what you have highlighted. So just as an example, let me draw something out, just something simple like a circle. And if I go to my selection and I select, and then I go to my move selection tool, you can see that I can scale it, and you can see a percentage at the bottom of your screen. You can see that I can move this around. You can see that I can also rotate. And then I can just click on this X to edit, to get out of that selection. And now moving along, we also have sort of a transform tool that you can transform and shape your drawing or whatever graphic that you've made within your layer. We have the ability to add in color using the paint bucket and gradients. A very simple type tool. We have measuring, like a ruler, so you can draw like straight lines. And you can move that around using these little anchor points. And then you can X out of that. And you have various other curves that you can make very detailed, very precise lines and curved lines. And you can see how we can make this ellipsis. You can rotate this around. You can resize this and then X out. And we also have this curved tool here where you can do some very intricate, detailed, and precise curved lines. And just as I showed you before, we can then move and scale these out if you like. And then we have our various other tools that we can draw very straight and very specific lines. And this is a pretty good tool because you can just be able to very quickly draw out the shapes and lines that you want. Now, what I like about this next tool is that it's a more of a symmetry tool that let me disable this one tool that I was in. So we have this mirroring tool. So whatever you draw on this side will then mirror over onto the other side. And it's one of the features that I particularly really enjoy using within Sketchbook Pro because it allows you to create sort of like if you're going to be doing any type of sketching of like any symmetrical object, say a character or a creature or some type of environment that is going to be mirrored over exactly the same. This is something that you can do. So I particularly like that, and you can kind of cross over a little bit. And I like being able to make your, what I like is being able to make sort of like a silhouette of an object, and you can do that, and I'll get to my layers in a second, but you can, make a silhouette of something very quickly in order to get sort of the character that you're trying to make, and you would work in that silhouette. You can see where there was a little bit mistake here. Sometimes when you cross over, you have to be careful with that. So I've done that before. And so you can make these pretty intricate and pretty interesting silhouettes of a character. And it's really great for concepting. So if you really want to concept something out and then bring that into a 3D program like Cinema 4D or Maya, you can use that as a reference in order to make the character that you want. And you can, of course, do all your different angles and very different styles that you want to use within Cinema 4D. So you can do the front view, you can do a side view, a top view, and then bring that into your 3D program, whether it be Cinema 4D, Maya, or maybe even ZBrush. So next, what I want to do is I want to show you the layers palette. You have very similar to what you would have in Photoshop, except what you have here is you can create a new layer, you can create a folder, you can open up a image, so you can add that in. You have this layer menu. It allows you to do a lot of the same things in these recent tools, but you can also do them in here. But you will also have this little whip here that allows you to choose very quickly what you want to do. Now, it might get a little, it'll take you some time to get used to these various different tools and what they're named, but it's nice that they have this little pop-up that tells you what icon does what. So you can see it deletes group, adds a layer, duplicate copy, hide, lock. So you can do all of that within this little circle here. And you can see that in every one of these layers. Now what you can also do is you can drop the opacity with this little bar here that drops the opacity. You can move the layer up and down using this icon here. You can see as you move this layer, you can see this little blue highlight. It tells you where it's going to be dropped into. And then of course you can lock it so that at any point you can't draw on top of that layer, which is really good if you say you want to have a reference underneath and you want to draw on it. You don't want to accidentally draw on that reference. Okay, so moving on, what we also have is this little Lagoon here. And when you click on it, you get some extra options that allow you to use a lot of the same things that we have up here. You have your different brushes, marker, pencil, and it's just another option in which to choose from in order to choose, quickly choose some of the colors, some of the different tools that we have in here. So we also have, all the selection tools, all the move tools, and whether you're going to be making a new file, save, open. So, whoops, let me cancel out of that. And here's our tool. You can see that it hides that, opens up our color editor. We have our undo, redo. So it's a little bit redundant, but it's just another way of getting to our options. Now, what we can also do is at any point, wherever we are on our screen, we can go to we can right click. I'm using a Wacom tablet, so I'm clicking but if you're using a mouse, you can just use right click. So you can quickly get to some of your other options like symmetry and actual size, zoom, and your ruler and your ellipse. So let me turn off this symmetry here. Now we have our little palette here for our pencil and all our drawing tools, but we also have more options. So if we click on this little icon here, we see we have our brush library. And as you can see, we have lots and lots of different tools in which to choose from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide our little character here, and I'm going to make a new layer. And let's just kind of experiment. I want to quickly give you an overview of some of these tools and should kind of show you how cool they are and how much of a variety that you can have when using these. Now, I should also point out before moving forward that there are brush properties to every one of your tools. So if I double click on any of these tools, you can see our brush properties, and each one has its own specific options in which to adjust in order to make it the tool more customized for what you're trying to do. So for pencil, you have your different hardness. If you've come from a traditional background, you know that there's different soft and hardness that will give you either a dark and sharper drawing line or a soft and lighter drawing line. So, and also because I'm using a Wacom palette, there is pressure sensitivity as well. And you have your opacity. So let me kind of just go through some of these, and you can see we have an airbrush. Let me bring up the size just so it's a little bit. And let's take a look at some of our colors too. And you can see how this airbrush works as you draw it. Sometimes it's just easier to demonstrate it than having myself kind of explain how each of these work. They're going to be very similar to the tools that you would use in a traditional sense, but it's just in a digital form. We have our marker. You can see how that turns out. And keep in mind, I'm going to keep this brush properties open so you can see the different options that are available for each one. And we have our chisel tip pen. You can kind of see how this works out. We have a ballpoint pen. And keep in mind that all of these that you make, all of these tools that you use can be made for various different options that you would use within your design or artistic career. So for sketching, for storyboarding, for concept art. So you can do, I have no idea what I'm drawing here, but you can, I'm just trying to kind of demonstrating some of these things, some of these tools. So you can kind of, as I go through this, I hope your wheels start turning and seeing how it would use for whatever artistic strategy that you would use within your, your career and whatever you're trying to accomplish. And we have a felt tip pen. You can see how that turns out. Let's get a different color here. We have our inking pen. Smear. And it's just fun, like, even if I don't have a specific task to get done with when I'm using Sketchbook Pro, if I'm doing some type of concept art or something like that, it's just fun just coming into this program and just playing around with some of the tools I've never used before. We have a blur. I'll kind of blur things out a little bit. Sharpen. So you can see that there's definitely some things that you have used maybe in other programs that are very similar, but I like how it's very specific to this program. You can see we have this hard eraser. And our soft eraser. Okay, so we have rapid character concepts. So this is a good program, a good set of tools if we're going to be making some concept art. We have our synthetic heavy flat brush. We have do-it-yourself brush, coarse brush, and I don't want to go through each and every one of these, but I just want to kind of give you an overview of, some of the things that we have here. And this is a pressure sensitive. So you can see as I'm kind of just tapping and then really holding down on the stylus. Another do-it-yourself brush. We have textures, which are really nice. Have this nice speckled run. It's kind of cool. And what it's really nice is that you can add in a lot of these things after you've got your main drawing done, and then you add in some of these nice texture elements. It really gives you something extra that I just can't seem to be able to. I just feel like it's very easy to get to these very specific tools and quickly create the concept art that I want, that I can't seem to get in Photoshop. Even though I've used Photoshop for 20 years now, using this program just allows me to quickly get to the tools that I want because it's so very specific to this program. It's so specialized that, Photoshop, let's, agree on what Photoshop has been. It's just kind of a all-purpose program for graphic and graphic arts, whereas this is very specific. And we have our Copic selection here. So if you're used to any Copic markers, and in fact, I believe that there is a Copic. I thought there was more of a Copic set here, but we do have these Copic markers here. Just check something. Okay, never mind. But we have if you're used to Copic markers, and it's something I dabbled in a little bit before, and it's something that has been used for concept art for a lot of different architecture, industrial design. Mainly because you can just quickly create these really nice concepts. And then you have your typical paintbrushes, which are really nice. And I'm just going to kind of speed through some of these just so you can kind of see how each one kind of is a little bit different. Let's get a different color here. So it's pretty cool the way you can kind of make these so very similar to the traditional brushes that you've used. And this one is a synthetic soft flat brush. And look at some of these textures that you can get there. It's really nice. You can imagine like creating clouds or smoke. Now, Sketchbook is free on Autodesk. I'm using Sketchbook Pro. And they're very similar, so you can kind of use a lot of the different tools here. And also, I want to point out that this saves out as a TIFF, but you can also save it as a PSD with all the layers. So if you want to bring that into Photoshop, you can do that as well. And we have our traditional tools. You can see all of these. We have our textures. So if you want to give like a background, so it has, your drawing has a little bit of bite, so to speak, even though it's digital, it kind of gives your drawing, I'm trying to remember the terminology that I would use for drawing on canvas, but like a kind of gives your drawing implement a little bit of bite onto the paper. Even though it's digital, it still kind of gives you something to work on top of. And so we have, I don't want to bore you with every one of these different options, but there's just so many that you can use. And you don't have to use all of them, obviously, but you kind of use it for whatever you're trying to create. And you can just experiment just endlessly. And like I said, all these different options, all of these different tools that we have here, and then they're endlessly customizable. So you can customize each of these different types of drawings. Look at all these different options that you have here. And sure, it might become overwhelming at first, but you can kind of use just the default settings and then just tweak as you're going along and to see each one and which each one does. And we have our pastels, which is really nice. I never really worked with pastels in a traditional medium. Only just like a little bit, just kind of, I probably dabbled with every medium. Water brush, inking, gouache, oil, charcoal, chalk, pen and ink. And then you have, some of these other textures as well. So as you can see, the things that you can do in this program and all the different types of tools, and the fact that it's so very specific to drawing, I think will really help you if you're kind of getting started with just on concept art, or if you're used to graphic design and Photoshop, but want a very specific program, getting a little tired of using Photoshop because there's just so many different options. And then you can, of course, bring it into Photoshop if you have those skills to further that, leverage the things that you're really good at within Photoshop in order to make that drawing or concept art even the next level and give it the next level of compositing that you would in, say, another program from Sketchbook Pro, and then bring that into Photoshop to give it that little extra polish in order to present to a client or your art director. So I hope this was beneficial. I hope I didn't go too long-winded in some of these tools. I just kind of wanted to give you an overview. Oh, and also I forgot there's these really nice splatter tools too that I really love. I love that. It really comes out really nice. You can kind of splatter in, so kind of almost like kind of like a noir, like a film noir kind of look to it. You can kind of really get that going if you're into that type of that style. You can kind of bring that in. It's kind of like a very inky kind of look. I really love. Anyway, I just just wanted to show you that real quick. But yes, check this out and take a look. I want to do some more concept art because it's important to see that when you're doing any type of 3D. I have a lot of 3D tutorials on this channel, but you can also see the concept art before actually making your 3D. And if you can do that on your own, that's going to be so much better for you in your career. And you'll be able to get a lot more work, whether freelance or a full-time position, if you know traditional drawing and sketching along with your 3D and 2D graphics. It'll just help you out so much more. So thanks for watching. I put a link in the description to download project files. You can also go to astronomicskills.com to download the project files from this tutorial, as well as all the tutorials that I've made so far. I also created a Create a Creature head in Cinema 4D on Udemy. You can also take a look at all the other courses that I've made on Udemy as well. Thanks for watching.